Okay. And thank you everybody for being here. And I've been talking on these subjects for going on a year, and I'm getting clearer. I'm finding in my own life, I'm getting clearer and clearer on my new direction and where I'm intended to go with this. And it's very good. And I've done a lot of talking in the past, and what I want to do today is I'm going to talk a little bit, but kind of as an experiment. I just want to see about making the points through looking at the charts and speaking with the volunteers about what's going on in their life. And a little bit of background for me is I have been an evolutionary astrologer since something like 2002, 2003. And for many years, I was doing lots of readings, doing pretty much straight Jeffrey Wolf Green evolutionary astrology. And in the last 3, 4, 5 years, my life started changing. And as they sometimes say about, people that make stuff, oh, you've been eating your own dog food, meaning consuming the product. The product of evolutionary astrology is evolution, soul growth, which means change. And lo and behold, for the last 3, 4 years, I've been pretty underground, going through very deep changes and feeling now that I'm starting to come out. And a lot of the changes that I've been going through, let me backtrack for a second. I wasn't quite sure how what I was experiencing was going to fit together with astrology, or if it was going to fit together with astrology. And I'm beginning to get clearer on how I'm intended to work with this, because I do feel it's more than just something I want to do. I feel like I'm intended to go through the process myself and work with other people from this perspective that I am developing as I watch my own life changing day by day. And what that perspective is, pretty much everyone I've ever met, from the perspective I look at it now, astrologer, non-astrologer, whatever, has grown up in a culture and a society where we tend to be not very self-confident, not very assured of ourselves, quite aware of what we're not doing right. Many of us have been told from early childhood what we have not been doing right. And we have imprinted these messages. And so what began coming to me is, what if that's conditioning and not really our core nature? And influences started appearing in my life. People, I would say, that were a few steps farther along than I was in the self-love department. I have Mars moon conjunction in the 6th house, and that's not typically a sign of high self-love, which I will attest to. And so the basic pattern, became, well, I'm not doing it right. And then when I made efforts through being on, getting into spiritual paths and directions early on, and when I would fall short of where I thought I was supposed to be or what I was supposed to be doing, then I would wind up in the familiar place of being down on myself again, if I realized I was supposed to or was working to become nicer to myself, then I would get down on myself when I found myself not being as nice to myself as I thought I was now supposed to be. So I realized being down on yourself, no matter, even if it's for a good reason, is still being down on yourself. And that just isn't the point. What if we have outgrown the model that we have been working with on the whole planet, not just in astrology, on the whole planet, in our religions, in our values, in our cultures, and because astrology is a system of awareness or divination, we are interpreting what we're seeing in the astrology through the filter of what we know, the way that we have been trained, which tends to include, I'm not doing it right, I'm not doing it good enough, I'm stuck here. If you get into evolutionary astrology at a certain point, it's like, I've been doing this for umpteen lifetimes, and obviously that means that I'm defective, because if I really applied myself and I was really good at it, I wouldn't get caught by all these things that I get tripped up in, and I would be farther along than I am. So what if that's just not it? And that's the perspective that I am coming to. And I call this heart-centered chart interpretation, because I start from the principle, what if there's nothing in your chart that's bad or wrong? Nothing in it is a sign that you haven't been doing what you're supposed to be doing. If you have, 14 squares, this is not because, what if it's not because you've been slacking off or you deserve them, whatever? It's just simply for reasons that we don't consciously understand what our soul has taken on for its evolution. I start with the premise now, and it's not the way I lived much of my life. Number one, I'm not alone here. And I don't mean by that just that I have friends, family, etc., but that the universe has not abandoned me. The universe has not kicked me out because I'm a screw up. The universe is on my side. The universe is like a very loving and caring mother. Those of you that have children or or were children, sometimes a parent, for the love of the child, has to allow the child to go through some things that they know that child is going to not want to do or be uncomfortable doing, because it's an important part of that child's growth and evolution. And more I see that's why we have experiences that we experience, some of them as difficult. Some of our spiritualities, some of our belief systems have given us the idea that if I really had it together and I was really doing what I was supposed to do, that my life would be, much simpler, easier. I wouldn't have to struggle so much for this, that, or the other thing. And I've come to look at that. It's sort of a reward. It's a way of looking at things that's sort of a reward and punishment system. In other words, if I was doing it right, then I would be having more benefits and less hassles. And this is fairly universal at this point, I would say. And so I'm saying, what if that's not true? What if the difficulties that we have in our life are not punishments, are not obstacles that are put there because I'm so lazy or whatever, that without all of that, I'm just not going to grow. I'm going to get sidetracked. What if everything that is in my life, what I like, what I don't like, what's easy, what's difficult, is there simply as the most efficient and effective way for me to grow at this time, at this point? And what are we growing towards? I'm going to add to that a lot of spirituality and astrology at this point, I would say, is more mental, masculine in nature. And if we look at it, I'm not talking about gender, male, female, I'm talking about the principles, the universe principles of masculine, feminine. And the masculine is more head and action oriented, and the feminine is more heart oriented. And neither is better, neither is superior. We have both of them, and they're equal in life. Yet we live in cultures for a long time now that have given more weight and value to the masculine. Even our spiritualities. Our spiritualities have been about, when am I going to get it together so I can get the hell out of here? Because it's so painful here. What I am seeing is that the very nature or purpose of life in a body is changing and shifting at this time. That the earth is moving more into a harmonious place between the masculine and the feminine. And the feminine has been so subjugated, pushed down, diminished for so long that it needs to rise. And there's a lot of wounding that is carried in the feminine as a result. And this is going to need to be worked out. And that is part of the masculine and feminine getting in better balance with each other. So the way that I'm speaking about it, about heart-centered, and if we go back to call it the traditional family, these are generalizations, but in general, the father tends to be more of an authority type of figure, and the mother tends to be more of a nurturing type of figure. I would say in some families, those roles could almost be reversed. It could be the man that is more nurturing and the woman that is more the father role, but they're playing the roles out. There's a strong father and a nurturing, the feminine energy tends to be more nurturing. Now, everyone's parents themselves are wounded and were raised by wounded people. So there are many people who had childhoods with mothers where the mother was not that nurturing. But I attribute a lot of that to the wounds that mother experienced and was not able to resolve. I say those of us who are on a call like this, who are thinking about the kind of things that we think about, are here at this time. We are helping to break these patterns. In order to be here, we had to be in a family. We can't be in a family as a child and not imprint some of the family's conditioning. It comes with the territory. And I say we are here, we are waking up from the conditioning to realize much more of who we really are, to heal ourselves, and through healing ourselves, helping to heal others that come into our life in the various roles. If you're an astrologer, clients, people in family, friends, anybody you encounter. If you work in a supermarket, smiling at the customers even when they're growling at you is a way of supporting the changes that are going on. So that's my basic introduction, the perspective that I'm coming from. Now, I want to do this. I asked the volunteers for people who were feeling fear or apprehension or uncomfortableness about what was going on in their life or their transits that are coming up, because I want to work with the people on how they're looking at what's going on in their life, what's going on in their chart. And I also feel that those who are listening, even if it's not your chart that's being discussed, the principles I'm going to be talking about are pretty universal. And so I feel like there's helpful information here for anyone and everyone in terms of how you're looking at yourself and your chart. And I'm going to start now. My disclaimer is I'm still a work in progress myself with this perspective. And I still, in other words, I still have lots of conditioning of the old way of looking at things, and it may unconsciously slip out at times. So I'm speaking about principles and perspectives that I am integrating, and they're not perfectly integrated yet in me. I actually, in looking, so I have 3 volunteers, and in looking at them, I felt like I want to talk to Jennifer first, because the way that you described what's going on with you was really hit on some of the points that I want to make.
Okay.
And briefly, Jennifer says, all right if I share some of this?
Yeah, sure.
Briefly, her solar return in April has a lot of Pisces energy. She doesn't know, her life's a little crazy right now anyway, and she doesn't know what all this new Pisces energy is going to do in her life. She has a tendency to perhaps idealize. And so what does she do with this? There's other transits going on. She's been having Pluto transits for some years now, lots of change and little stability. That's and she's afraid that she's going to miss or forget or not reach the evolutionary intent. I want to start with this because I feel like that a lot of people feel that way about different parts of their life. And I want to say that first of all, some of the perspectives that I'm going to put out, if they're not what one is used to, you can call them beliefs. I started with beliefs as I was introduced to new concepts, principles, and I started applying them to my life. And it's a very gradual process. So I don't require or think that you should just decide that what I'm saying is true and right, and that's where you should go. I say, take in what I'm saying, bring it into your life, and you can actually talk to life, Okay, so I want to try this out. Is this a bunch of nonsense, or is there something here? Show me how this is real and effective for me. Or if it isn't, if it's not relevant to me, then show me that. And this is what I mean, what I started saying about we are not alone. We are not alone. And that gets overlooked a lot of the time because in a human body, very often we feel alone. Very often we want to be, or humans want to be surrounded by a lot of people and a lot of activity as much as they can, because they find when I'm alone, then all these feelings start coming up that I don't particularly like feeling. And so if I keep busy or I keep myself surrounded by people, then I don't have to feel those feelings. And I'm going to say that I'm finding that it's the very feelings that I don't like to feel that come up when I'm alone that actually are proving to be the sort of the key for changing my imprinting, my perspective. And the gist of it is whatever feeling is coming up, whether I like it, don't like it, whether it's pleasant, unpleasant, including fear, panic, anxiety, anger, loneliness, boredom, all of those feelings. You don't have to like them. In no way am I saying these should become your favorite feelings. No, they're not going to become it's unlikely they're going to become your favorite feelings. But what I am saying is we have rejected these parts of ourselves because we have been taught that they're bad, wrong, uncomfortable. And what I'm saying is they're not. This would be like if you have some kids in the neighborhood, and let's say one of the kids, if you have kids and the kids have friends in the neighborhood, and one of the kids comes from some sketchy kind of background, and they have picked up some unpleasant behaviors from this, and the word is out in the neighborhood, this kid, stay away from that kid. So think how that kid feels inside, because they're aware of what's going on. This is what we have done to some of our emotions, some of the things that we feel. We don't want them around. They show up, we're like, out of here. I don't want you around. These are wounded parts of ourself, and they simply want to receive love. They want to be loved. That little kid that's rejected in the neighborhood, what he would really, really want is somebody to tell him that he's a beautiful, sweet kid. And his conditioning is such, he might not be able to respond to that. He might reject it. He might not know what to do with it. He might feel uncomfortable with it. This is like the parts in us also. It's about learning that every part, everything that we feel is exactly what we're supposed to be feeling. There's nothing wrong. There's nothing that I feel that needs to be fixed. I accept it the way it is. Jennifer, I want to give you, here's an interesting thought. What if it's absolutely impossible that you fail the evolutionary intent? Impossible. I know you may not believe that. Just take that in. I will say this. The very fact that a person is saying they're afraid they're going to fail the evolutionary intent says to me how important it is, how important the evolutionary intent is to that person. That's really important to them. There are a whole lot of people on this planet that don't seem to give a hoot about their evolutionary intent. And that's okay. They're not at the place yet where that's important to them. The fact that it's important enough to you that you want to be sure that you fulfill that is a sign of how important that is to you. And that's a sign of already being in an evolutionary state that is pretty well along. You
Steve,
cannot fail.
Steve,
Yes.
I need to ask you something real quick. Are you
Um, looking at, well, they're more obvious on this chart. Looking at all of the retrogrades, I would say briefly, and Jennifer, if you keep your audio on, that would be good because I'd like us to have a little dialogue during the course of this.
All right.
Is that okay?
Yeah.
Okay. See, what do we have for planetary retrogrades? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So,
Steve? Jennifer's going to have to keep hers off until she responds to you because there's a lot of feedback.
Great.
When her mic is open.
That's fine. Okay, great. I'm going to put this thought out to you. You have set up such a program. You've set up a program that says, I'm going to achieve what's there for me to do. That's how I would look at that. And what this means, among the other things this means, is that this is giving you the permission and the energy, the oomph, to do it in your own way. To do it in your own way. You have a seventh house Pluto moon and two planets in Libra in the sixth house, and your Pluto and a few other things are squaring your nodes, so they're skipped steps. And the gist of this is you're being called to claim your authority. This is the way I look at it. You're being called to claim your authority, and there are places in you that feel insecure and even afraid and questioning if you can do that. And these are signs to me with the placements and so forth that it's been a long journey with this. And you're stepping. See, the beautiful part is you only have to step out one little piece at a time. You don't have to drive yourself. You don't have to push yourself. You don't have to decide that you have to do things that you're really uncomfortable doing, because it's a step-by-step piece. And it comes with honoring where you find yourself right now. Because it's been a whole lot, not just for you, for any of us, to be where we are right now. Being in a body is, there's a lot of challenges with being in a body, and they're supposed to be there. That's why we come here. And life is completely behind you. And you go step by step, little by little. And if you need to, hide away for a while at different times because you can't be more yourself, that's fine. There's a permission piece. That's fine. Because you not only, part of claiming your authority is discovering who I really am. Discovering who I really am. And any and everything that you need to go through is all around helping you to discover who you are. When you're, yes, Pisces, what did I want to say? Um, I would take idealization. I would take idealization and just consider that your very nature is very pure and innocent, like a child. You come from a place inside that's very pure. You don't want to hurt anything, anyone. And a soul that's wired like that comes into a reality like this and goes, what is going on here? What is it? Why don't I get this? And little by little, you know, I would say part of your mission work, in whatever form it is to help others back to recognize their own innocence and purity at their core. And part of that is learning how to function in this kind of reality, where there's a whole lot of people that are coming from very different motivation. And so when you're having experiences that EA calls disillusionment, idealization, and so forth, and yes, they're very painful, but they're not wrong. That's really important. They're not wrong. You're learning.
Yeah, I just had a major disillusionment about a friend that was very dear to me, and I thought we were on a journey together and we were building something, and then suddenly I find myself like cut out of his life, and everything that I thought would unfold just is gone. It's just gone. Everything's just gone. And I just feel like I shouldn't have fallen for this illusion somehow. I just have noticed the signs. I did see them, but I thought, no, it's not this. Yeah, I think that's a thing. And I'm afraid that with all these Pisces, I will fall again for something that is not the reality.
Oh, thank you for sharing that. The way that I would say this, I mean, I see with all that, I see you have a Scorpio moon. And, you know, often that will, Scorpio is associated with betrayal and abandonment. Part of this, what have you done? Obviously, when that occurred, it brought up a lot of uncomfortable emotions inside of you. How have you been dealing with the uncomfortable emotions that came out of that experience?
Well, I was just like, for 2 weeks, I basically could do nothing really. I just needed to feel the sadness and cry and live with this very different energy inside of myself. It's just so sad. I think it's the saddest thing that I've ever experienced.
And how did you feel? How were you treating yourself about needing 2 weeks to go through that? Were you okay with that, or were you giving yourself a hard time?
I think I was giving myself a hard time, and I felt in the very moment that it happened, I felt like, okay, now you need to figure out what to do next. So then I found myself, okay, this is too painful, this is too much, I just cannot do anything right now. I need to just feel this. But there's still this push inside of me that says, no, now you need to do something about it. You need to figure out what is up next. But it's not like a scratch, it's a major wound, and I just can't pretend it's not there.
Yes. Yes. And What I would say is that when something is taken out of our life that is very painful, it's because our soul, we are upgrading. We are upgrading. A powerful, painful experience like you had is going to change you. And I don't mean by that, to make you, to put fear in you that, I'm not going to open myself up again because I don't want that to happen again, kind of thing. That's not what I mean. When experiences come along that just knock us out of where we were, what we thought our reality was. Number one, they're not easy, they're painful. I'm not trying to minimize at all. And being human, we need time to integrate the experiences. And it's likely that it's going to be more than 2 weeks for you. Although I don't mean that, you have to stop your whole life for months. But there's a part of you that's a shocking experience. And because I started by saying life is on your side, it can only happen, number one, that it happened is a sign that you're capable of handling the experience, or it wouldn't have happened. And number two, it takes time to understand it because it is pushing you out of your known. The other things that you wrote are your feelings about the Pisces and the other transits and so forth. You see, we're not in control past a certain point. Our ego, our personality, which for most of us predominates in our reality, and that's not bad, it's just the way we are. When something like this happens, our ego personality is our sense of personal identity. You identify as the person that was having that experience with that person that suddenly blew up. That identity can no longer be there because the experience that you were finding central to it blew it apart. You're now being opened to become more, even more, of who you truly are. This does not mean that you cannot have other relationships, that this is going to occur again and again. You're learning what you're looking for. And you will certainly be more aware in the future of signs to look for, because the very pain of what's occurred here has opened your eyes to some degree. Because when I talk about, innocence, I'm saying that as a very good thing, not like something that needs, you have a purity about you. And it needs to learn how to function in the earth reality in the current state of consciousness on the planet. And that is what you're learning. And you may have other disillusionments, but you're not going to do the same thing again. It'll be different. You're refining yourself through the experiences that you're having. You're not going around in a circle doing the same thing over and over. There are levels. It's a spiral here, and you're moving up as these things occur. And the changes that's what I want to say also. You don't know what to do next because the very person that you were, you're not that person anymore. And you don't know how to be the person you are now because you haven't had enough time to integrate who you are now. But life has a plan for you. Life has a plan for you. And I think I need to move on. I would like to talk to
Yeah.
you more, but I think I need to move on and talk to.
You got 20 minutes
Yeah,
left.
Jordan, is that how you pronounce your name? Jordan? Okay.
Yes, sir.
Let's see about finding your chart. And Jordan, let's see. Oh, I'm using the wrong mouse on the wrong computer. Okay, so Jordan has had an intense shift in her relationship, having had what I would call a Scorpio experience. That this had been going on for a year, which I assume she wasn't really aware of. So there's a similar theme there. The highest form of evolution within the relationship for the good of us and our daughter. I want to talk about, she's saying she's been offered a complete lifestyle change that would involve raising my daughter in a community center of like-minded people within the U.S. Let me get your chart up here. And, you know, when I was single, this was a no-brainer, but now I have a daughter and I want to be a good role model and make sure I'm not being selfish. And I'm going to say this. The role model, a good role model to set for your daughter is when you know something is true in your heart, that you have the courage to carry it out. So that your daughter doesn't grow up being a people pleaser. And the way you can look at it is that you're feeling the impulse that this is what is there for you to do. In other words, your daughter picked you, so to speak. I mean, to me, it was all in the program anyway, but she came in knowing who you are and what was going to be going on in her life. And so if some of it is uncomfortable, painful for her, those are changes that are necessary for her growth. This goes back to like what I said earlier about sometimes the parent has to have the child do things that they know the child is not going to like. Because that's what being a good mom actually requires. Because if you do everything for the child, then the child doesn't learn how to stand on their own 2 feet. And you're demonstrating, when you demonstrate, you know, it's interesting having 2 7th house Plutos in a row. And so that again is, you know, is part of your life lesson also, that of empowering yourself, taking your power, realizing I have a lot of Libra stuff in my chart. I'm well aware of this one. That, you know, taking care, being true to self versus wanting to serve the community and make myself second. And it's not like making self first is the goal. It's that doing what you know in your heart is what you're intended to do, is the goal. And the issue with Libra stuff, 7th house stuff, is the tendency to compare and contrast or ask other people, what do you think about this? Should I do this? What's your opinion of this? And what I realized after a long time was what I was hearing from all those people when I did that is what they would do if they were me. But they're not me. And in a certain sense, what you're hearing from them really, number one, they're very well intentioned. They care about you. But what you're hearing about them is not necessarily what serves you. And the courage, with the seventh house is to have the courage to learn to trust your own voice. South Node Virgo, not trusting own voice because of being overly aware of one's inadequacies, shortcomings, imperfections, and all this. And the gist of it is, as I am increasingly realizing, human life is messy. Seventh house, Libra, we want everything. We want people to get along, for things to be smooth, want some harmony. We have that at times. Life is messy. We argue with, families don't get along. It's messy. And I'm realizing it's on purpose because it's out of the conflict, the last thing Libra wants. It's out of the conflict that it's holding up a mirror and I'm seeing more of myself. And coming to realize, here's a piece I've been focusing on. There's 7 billion people approximately on this planet, and no two people are remotely the same. Occasionally you meet somebody that reminds you of somebody else, but if you get to know them closely, there are lots of places where they're different. Each of us is unique. Each of us is divine. And each of us came here with our own individual mission. And nobody else can fulfill it. And whether that's going to affect 3 people or 37 million people is not, that's in the program. We don't have control over that, but it doesn't matter. Because the gist of it is, if one is fulfilling the mission, whether they're talking to 3 people or 18,000 people, you can do it with the same degree of passion, putting your all into it. And if more is supposed to happen, it unfolds by itself over time. And if more doesn't unfold, it's not because the person failed, it's because that wasn't in the program. Because our life missions, our life purposes are going to work out. And they're often not what we think they are or wish they were. They are what they are. And it comes to honoring that, learning to honor that, the uniqueness in each of us. Jennifer, for example, when I was talking about, I see, speaking with you have a beautiful, innocent quality. And that's a gift. And it's not always an easy one. We all have individual qualities that are our gifts. And lots of people are not going to understand that or appreciate that. And the important part, Jordan, I want to say this too. What happened with your partner, I think this is important. You may already come to this, but it's not about you. It's not about you. It's really, really hard to go through a situation like little kids when their parents get divorced and they wind up walking away. I must have been bad or wrong because why did mommy and daddy, all that. It's not about the kids. It's not about you. All the people that we encounter, we have our own wounds. And being in a relationship which we think is going to make us happy, which does to an extent at times, also brings up all our crap. I don't even like saying crap. Just the parts of us that, let me rephrase that. That's an old term for me. The parts of us that we don't like feeling or seeing because they make us feel that I'm bad for having them. That stuff comes up in relationship because you can fool people on the outside, but you can't be with somebody all the time, day in and day out in the most personal way and keep all of the parts of yourself that you don't like hidden. And it's not like they're hiding it because they don't want you to see it. It's most of the time I find they're hiding it because they're ashamed of the parts that are in them. And that's what the shadow is about. We hide away the parts that we're ashamed of. And what I'm seeing is that the future on the planet moving to a love, a heart-centered, a planet that remembers that we're divine beings, emanations, is making friends with our shadow. So when you get wasted, trashed, of course, an initial place is, what did I do that could have made it different? You know, why, you know, whatever. I don't know exactly what went on with you, but it's pretty typical. I mean, it may not have gone on with you, but, you know, I find out.
15 minutes, Steve.
I'm sorry?
You got 15 minutes left.
Okay, great. Thank you. You know, you find out your partner's been having an affair for a year. Of course, first you're mad. And then you're mad at yourself. And then at a certain point, because the heart piece comes in and goes, oh, what did I do that contributed to this occurring? And, you know, you can look at what you did and see, oh, well, now I see I could have done this and not done this and da-da-da-da-da. But I point out, you didn't know that at the time. You were doing the best you knew how to do at the time. And even your partner was doing the best he knew how to do at the time. The point of all of it is growth. And unfortunately, we can create hurt and pain for people that we care about as part of our growth. But again, I say, as I said about your daughter, we're aware of this in the greater program. And it's shocking and painful. And you will be stronger and clearer as you give yourself the space to take the time out that you need to self-nurture and self-heal, because you can give yourself, or learn to give yourself, the love that you wanted from your partner. Which is not to say that we shouldn't have partners, because, you know, we get codependent. I mean, to me, that's codependent. When I'm propping you up and you're propping me up, that becomes codependent. But it's because of our wounds that we're in that in the first place. So as out of that, I'm like, well, I see. I kept my eyes closed to a certain extent because I appreciated the love that I was receiving. So the eyes get opened, and then it's like, well, I guess I need to learn to love myself. And when you have two people that are in relationship that have either learned that or are learning that together, then it's a whole different thing. Because then the codependence and the need, the neediness and all this, you help each other heal from that, realizing I have what I need within myself. And I can learn to come to be in this place. Now, this is to me, on Earth now,
Steve, hold on just a moment. You've got one more volunteer, and you've only got about 10 more minutes.
Okay. We're in wake-up time. We're in wake-up time. And those of us that are going through this now, we're going to be, for those who feel called, like you're here to assist other people, we're going through these changes because more and more and more people are going to be waking up, and a lot of them won't have consciously asked to wake up. And we're going to be able to help them in real time from having gone from being asleep ourselves to the process of waking up, because it's messy at times. Okay. Della, let's see.
I'm here.
Della, where are you?
I'm
See.
here speaking, but I didn't send you a description, but what I experience is what I would sum up to transit fatigue, and like Chiron is on my natal moon, and with orbs, it seems like that transit still like another half a year at least.
Yep. Let me get your transits up here just a second.
Thank you.
What's your time? What does your time look like in your life? Do you have a busy schedule?
Not super busy, but it is picking up. Like I actually just started a new job after months of applying for jobs, and then I got a call back from a job that I applied for 2 months ago that now wants to interview me on Tuesday. So it definitely is picking up, and I have a lot of like decisions to be made as to what I'm going to be doing with my life. But definitely been in a stage of hibernation and sticking to myself, doing a lot of learning. And I also have like a special project I'm working on within astrology, and I just feel cautious to like put it out there into the world still.
Yes.
That's been a theme.
Let's look at that as that you feel cautious about it means that it's not yet the right time.
Mm-hmm.
Period.
Yeah.
What I was going to say to you is that in what you're describing, get as much downtime and rest time as you can. I understand you need to work. Arrange your schedule as best you can do you have kids?
No.
Okay. Arrange your schedule as best you can to give yourself the time to be with yourself and to honor yourself and to not, pick at yourself and use this. What we do is we tend to get new information, and then after a while we start using it against ourselves. So we want to practice being really kind and appreciating ourselves exactly as we are and where we are. I see in your chart, for example, right now, Black Moon Lilith is on your South Node. That's a wonderful time. That's a healing of the feminine, of the wounds coming out of your past. And self-nurture would be wonderful. Whatever is nurturing to you. Chiron, that's what you were saying. Chiron's on your moon.
Yes.
That moon wants a rest. You want to integrate all that has come before as much as you can. Just slow down. It's okay. It's okay to slow down. It's okay to slow down for 3 years if you have to. Your time, you will know inside. In other words, when a person feels that what they would really like is to have time for themselves, but life just won't allow it, or whatever talk we give to ourselves. Well, that's the reason you want that is you need that. Now, in our culture, we don't validate that. We, that's lazy or not productive or whatever. This is integration time. You're integrating the healing by Chiron, by allowing yourself to nurture yourself in the places where you were wounded. Let me look at all right, so you have natal Chiron, 10th house. in Taurus. And Saturn is, your natal Saturn is in the second house. You know, needing time, quiet time, slow time is intrinsic to your nature. I would say the Chiron in the 10th house, you've gotten beaten down in expressing in the world. That's created wounds just for doing it the way you want to do it. You need to do it. How are we doing on time, Wanda?
Only about 4 minutes left.
Okay. And, you know, I wanted to say that I'm going to validate something that you wrote, because you said, not sure if my transits are considered difficult enough. Difficult is what a person is experiencing, and nobody else gets a say in that. And if you're having a hard time with something, it's hard.
The nodal return the past year was really hard.
Yes. And a nodal return is taking us into the next phase of our life. I've noticed that nodal returns are very significant. And they're ending of an 18-year cycle. And, you know, things really start changing and shifting.
It's true.
And in our culture, we're not really prepared for those kind of changes, because culturally, most of us get the message to hang on to whatever you get, whenever you get it. And life is saying, wait, I got more adventures out there for you. And they're literally adventures coming up, and we find them scary because it requires letting go of what we know already. And we feel safe and secure from what we know already. And you don't have to move. You just move at the pace that works for you.
How do I know what works? Just when what am I seeking? A sense of comfort? Because that so far, I feel like it's my mind. I remember your request was about anxiety, and I definitely have mental anxiety that doesn't bring rest.
Then slow down. Just slow down. It's okay to have anxiety. And in some ways, it means you're feeling like you're not ready to do certain things. And you don't have to do them. When it's time to do them, you will know inside. You'll feel it in your body. When it's time to stop resting and relaxing and get a little more active, you'll start feeling it inside. And there's a difference between the feelings of conditioning and the intrinsic nature of the body, because we're programmed to do. Most of us are do, gotta, not doing enough, missing my life intentions, all this. And it's what you know in your body. If it's like, oh, well, I got to do these actions towards this new business I want to start, or my new healing career, or whatever. And it's like, but I don't want to do it. Well, you don't want to do it because there's parts of you that aren't ready to do it. Parts of you are ready to do it. And they kind of need to negotiate. It's like, okay, so we're going to be heading in this direction. And other parts of you are like, I am just not ready to do that. I haven't recuperated yet from the last one.
Exactly.
And that part of you gets a say. If you're really missing your timing, you're going to start getting that message in life in multiple ways, all at the same time. And you'll even start feeling a desire like, okay, well, I want to move. Well, when a big part of you is not ready to move, don't move. But have some discussion between those parts. Have them talk to each other. Like, hey, we're on the same team here. I'm not ready. It's like if your right leg is not ready to run the race, the left leg can't really do it by itself.
Okay, we will have to go ahead and end it on that note.
Great.
Thank you so much, Steve.
You're welcome.
Thank you so much, Della, Jennifer, and Jordan for volunteering. This was a fabulous meeting. And would you all please thank Steve Wolfson and the volunteers?
Thank you, Steve.
Thank you
so much.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Good job. Thank you so much.
See you in the next meeting.
Okay.